And we did establish our connection now, finally, with Peter Max calling us from the cold part of the country. They're up the New York State way, huh?
Yeah.
Good morning.
How are you, buddy?
It's my pleasure to have you on board.
It's nice. It's nice. We're finally, we had snow and freezing weather. It's finally nice here. But tonight I'm going to be in Naples, thank God.
And you'll be doing an exhibit, I understand. It's called The Colors of a Better World.
Yeah, there was a name of a traveling art museum show that some museum people gave me. I had about 110 museum shows probably in my lifetime, and the last 10 shows were called Colors of a Better World. 10 before that were called From Pop to Patriotism. But I'm going to have the show at the Kensington Art Gallery, and it's on in Naples, right?
Mm-hmm. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah, it's 604 Fifth Avenue. And can I tell you when I'm going to be there?
Sure.
Friday the 20th from 6 to 9, Sunday the 21st from 4 to 7, and Sunday from 1 to 3.
1 to 3 in the afternoon.
And you can always look it up on my petermax.com and know where I'm going to be. But let me tell you, when I had when I got on the scene years ago, and by the way, I had a nice museum show in Florida too. But before that, I was a realist. You asked me before the show, about the painting part.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a realist like Rembrandt, like John Singer Sargent, like Velázquez. And I was very, very good at it. But when I got out of art school after 6 years, everybody loved my work, but they said, Peter, if we want realism, we just get photography. And nobody bought my work. I was so hurt and disappointed. And then I developed this cosmic style, the one that I introduced into the Yellow Submarine, because John Lennon wanted me to do the Yellow Submarine, and I styled it for them. I got to meet the great and wonderful Al Brodax, who was the promoter, the producer of the Yellow Submarine. And so, make a long story short, I styled the film for the Yellow Submarine. And afterwards, Life magazine gave me an 8-page cover story. Johnny Carson had me on a show, and Ed Sullivan did a 1-hour TV special on me. And it was like the most thrilling thing that ever happened to me.
And then you busted out of your shell there in the 60s.
In the 60s. And, for artists, usually the model was, my God, you look to put your art here or there. It's the hardest thing for artists to do that. And I followed my own road, there were no models for me to follow. I didn't know where to go with my art. When I came out of art school, there I was left alone in the street. Where do you go?
The great thing. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
The great thing about art is you get to create a world that is your imagination from something that doesn't exist, possibly doesn't exist.
Yeah.
You can make up your own world. Peter, there's so many questions I wanted to ask you. You've had the privilege of doing portraits for some of the notables: Bono, Seinfeld, Spielberg, Nicolas Cage, Harrison Ford. You've done presidents' portraits.
Yeah, I painted the last 5 presidents. The last 6 I painted just recently. The last one was 2 weeks ago. I painted George 41, which is W's father, and I also painted a gigantic Liberty that's going into his, the George Bush Museum. But I also have a huge painting going into the Clinton Museum, and I've got one in the Reagan Museum. I've got one in the Carter Museum.
Now, do they sit with you, or do you paint for them?
No, the sitting happened like in the Renaissance days.
Okay.
These days, today, nobody sits anymore. You just give them a photograph, and that's what you do.
So you haven't had the opportunity to meet all the people?
Oh, no, I got to meet them all. I met everybody. I met Seinfeld, I met Spielberg, I met Nicolas Cage, I met Harrison Ford, I met Tom Selleck, and I painted all these guys.
Any behind-the-scenes good stories there that you might go along with some of these?
Oh, yeah. It's amazing, when you get to paint people who are famous in politics or in entertainment. They're real charismatic people. And first of all, you can't help but kind of pinch yourself when you're with these people. And I've never gotten used to it, even though I'm with them almost on a daily basis.
What was your inspiration then? You got started with the cosmic thing after you got out of the reality.
Well, I think there was a necessity. I had to do something to earn a living, because my father was a very big businessman, very successful. I grew up in China. My father owned a very nice size department store, and my mother always was worried if I was going to be an artist. They wanted me to go my father's business, and